Welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true Planner Pals. I'm Jess or Jessie Corinne.
And my name is Mark, and I go by Mark Your Pages. And welcome back. We are so excited, Planner Pals. Thank you so much for all of your really cool and interesting ideas you shared with us last time on how you're being productive inside of your planners and your bullet journals. And we wanted to take that theme and we wanted to carry it along today because we're going to be sharing some of our favorite productivity methods. These are the tried and true methods. These are collection pages and techniques and just all the fun stuff that Jess and I have been doing for a super long time. And Jess, I know this is a topic that's really close to your heart. You are like the productivity queen over here.
I'll take it. Crown it. Yes, please. I love productivity. I love productivity tips. I love tricks. I love hacks. I love tools. So I'm all about this episode. So excited to get into it. In fact, we're just going to continue to steamroll this. Mark, what's your first one? I want to hear about it.
All right. Well, my first one shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but the bullet journal method is probably one of my favorite methods. I talked about this in the last Q&A episode where someone said, how do you stay excited about the things that you're using? And this is the only thing that I've ever used for this long in my entire life. And I think there's probably a few reasons for that. And a lot of them, I'm sure other people can very much relate to. I can definitely say one of my favorite things about the bullet journal method is that you really customize it for whatever you want. It is there for you if you want to buy the book and just follow exactly what everyone's Lord and Savior has said, Ryder Carroll, on how to do it. I also love that they are continuing to evolve it as well over time, which I think is really important, because otherwise I think it just stays a little bit stagnant, So I love that they're coming out with new ways to be more intentional and thoughtful about it, because I feel like it's always been there, but recently I feel like they've been doing a little bit of more of a job of bringing that forward. Would you say that you've seen that as well?
Yeah, I think that especially when you have a method that you've kind of perfected over as much time as Ryder has had his system, you can get to a point where it's just same old, day in, day out. But we had the introduction of the weekly log, for instance. That wasn't one of the original collections. We've had the introduction of the new bullet, or what signifier symbol, I suppose, for denoting thoughts, because that was something he felt was missing from the system. So it's been nice to see how they've kind of been releasing bits of media, reels, videos, whatever else, around those little extra additional pieces that have been added in since the method was first shared and then the book was published and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they included the weekly log, because honestly, for a while, I felt like I wasn't following the method because I changed it up. But I think that is another thing that I really love about it and why it's been so helpful for me. So I use mine a lot for work, and from the very beginning of me using the method as a whole, the whole idea was to be able to focus down on what needed to actually get done. Where am I putting the notes? How am I pulling these things together? And honestly, the collection pages for me are some of my most used pages, because for work, there's always a meeting and it's a reoccurring meeting that I have. So having one place to put that has always been great. And it's just something that I had struggled with previously. And it's just overall, the bullet journal method has just been fantastic for me. And I also love that it can be an all-in-one option if you want it to be, or as you and I have talked about and you've shared a lot, is building out those stacks and then having notebooks that are focused on specific things, or almost like little mini collections from a bullet journal. I don't know, do you consider having those type of books still bullet journaling, or are you thinking about the individual books for habit tracking or things like that differently than the bullet journal method?
I think it's kind of inspired by a true story kind of a thing. So it's building out my repertoire fleet of notebooks or whatnot. They all came into being part of my lineup because I found something that wasn't being fully served in my everyday bullet journal. Whether that be oh, I have to move this over with every new journal I set up, because I go through at least 2 a year. So then it's cool, we'll have the long-term collections journal. So I've still got kind of collection pages in there, but they're the ones that I want to be able to reference time and time again and not have to search back through 16 different notebooks to try and find the exact one where I put it. So I think that there are still elements of bullet journaling in there, but I probably wouldn't go as far to say that they are bullet journals.
Okay, yeah, I just was always thinking about that. They're almost like little mini collection notebooks, but a lot of those ideas stem from the bullet journal. Maybe not, but I know in my mind, different ones that I have, like the one that I have for our podcast, I just made into its own notebook. Also, because I have so many notebooks. I have plenty to spare. But the idea is like this could live inside of my regular bullet journal. But I personally feel like this was better to have dedicated because we write down so many notes and ideas and everything. It just made sense to put it there. But I still use a lot of the methodology of the bullet journal method in this, even though it's not like an everyday, all the things bullet journal, so to say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Mine's probably a pretty similar kind of style. It's like there are parts in there that look like bullet journaling, but it's not necessarily what I would call a true bullet journal. Like the Bujo purists would come out and smack me over the head with the official bullet journal method book, but we can say that it's like cousin of, close to.
How about you, Jess? What's one of your favorite productivity methods to use?
Well, I love that you started with bullet journaling because, of course, that is very important. But I'm just gonna like hone in on a very particular part of bullet journaling, and it's only within the last like year and a half that this has come like to be one of my staple productivity pieces, and that would be daily logging. I just love the idea of being able to get like all of your thoughts out of your head onto paper, kind of like start your day with a clear mind, feeling very cool, calm, and collected. It's like previously I would want to have a weekly structure for that. I want to be able to put things in particular days of the week so I know like this is getting done on Thursday, this is getting done on Friday, anything like that. But nowadays, I don't know if it's because I have more flexibility in my schedule and it doesn't really matter as much, or maybe I just don't care as much about having to migrate things time and time again. But just being able to get like kind of that brain dump into one space, it means that I can kind of separate the task recording from the task organizing, because I think that a lot of time like mental energy and such was spent thinking like, oh, okay, which collection page do I need to put XYZ in, like should this go in the monthly log, should this go in the future log, or like whatever. But by having it just go straight into the daily, that's like my first touch point. In terms of actually turning this into a productivity tool though, that's where we come in with the quote daily highlight. This one comes from the book Make Time. It's like one of my all-time favorite books now. It is so good. If people haven't read Make Time, go get it. It's just brilliant. So the idea of the daily highlight though is just deciding on that kind of one thing in the day that if you get to the end of the day and you've done your daily highlight, then the day was a win. So at the start of the day, I try and pick my daily highlight, my kind of like focus task. I'll usually put a dot of color over the task bullet so it very much stands out on my list, so I can hone in on that thing and say like, this is what we're going to get done, this is what we're prioritizing. If it gets done before the end of the day, awesome, fabulous, great. We can pick another daily highlight if I want to kind of like keep the productivity train rolling. But as long as I get it done, then I can still feel like accomplished, I suppose.
I like that. I've done something similar to that where I'll have like my top three. It's a very similar thing to that highlight, but I'm picking three things that I want to try to accomplish. But I really like the idea of the focus highlight though, because that makes me feel like it's very obtainable. Having more than one can probably feel a little overwhelming depending on the task itself that you might have there for you. So it's always a win, I feel like, as long as you get that one thing done. But would you pick like a whole project as a highlight to be like, you're going to record and edit this video today? Or is it just kind of a singular part of a larger piece that you're highlighting?
That's a good question. It very much depends on the day. Like if I know that I have enough flexibility in my schedule to like fully like plan, film, edit, release a video, then I'll make it the full video. If it's like a low energy day and I feel like, nah, I'm really not feeling it, I'm probably not going to get very much done, I'll just pick a smaller part of an overall project. So I appreciate the kind of like flexibility that the highlight doesn't have to be something major. It also doesn't necessarily have to be something that's traditionally productive, if that makes sense. Like sometimes the highlight is have fun with my friends. Like I'll go out and like have a social event or something. That is going to be the highlight. As long as I get to the end of the day having like kind of fully been present in the moment, been there in my social situation, enjoying myself, then I still count that as kind of productive.
I like that. I like that you're also picking things that aren't just tasks to be done, but experiences to happen. That's awesome.
Alrighty, Mark, what would be your number two, your second very awesome productivity tool tip trick?
I've told this story in a very poor way in the past. So I'm talking about the Ivy League method. And I think the reason that I love this one so much is because it has such a cool story behind it. And I've also used this method as well for myself. I don't use it all the time, but I especially use it when I have to get stuff done. And the bullet journal method, the normal one anyway, is not working out for me. So what's cool about this story is that like all the way back in 1918, Charles M. Schwab is one of the richest people in the world at this time. And he owned this business and he just wanted to be more productive and like get more stuff done. So he brought in Ivy Lee, who was a successful businessman on his own. And he was like big into public relations. So, good talker, can kind of talk anybody into anything. And the story, as it's told, essentially is that Charles Schwab brings him in. He's like, hey, I want my associates to be more productive. I want them to get more stuff done. And Ivy Lee is like, cool, give me 15 minutes. And it's like, wait a second, you're going to revolutionize my business in 15 minutes? What do you mean? Like, how much does this cost? And what's great is that Ivy Lee was like, look, I'm not going to charge you anything. I'm going to go ahead and give this advice to your associates. And if it works, you pay me whatever you want to pay me. And so essentially, Ivy Lee goes in and he talks to everyone about this Ivy Lee method. And really what it is that at the end of every workday, you write down the 6 most important things that you want to get done the next day. And you only write down 6 things. That's where I struggle sometimes, because I'm like, I want to do all of these things and it doesn't work out. These are the 6 things that you want to get done. And what you do is you prioritize those into the most important up top, down to the least important. So there is a lot of thought that goes into this method, but it all works out like when it all happens, right? And so when you come to work the next day, the idea with this is that you start tackling the things on your list, but you have to do them in the priority order that you set for yourself. So it is very much on you to prioritize those and then make sure they happen in that order. And you're not supposed to move on to the next task until that first one's done. Now, realistically, we know that that's not always happening and we like to jump around. But if you're following the true method, the way good old businessman Ivy Lee said, that's how you do it. And then you go ahead just like through the list as you would normally do. You would write down notes on that day. You probably have other tasks that are coming into your inbox, so to say. And then you're taking a look at everything that you didn't get done and the things that have come up. And then you're reprioritizing that again. And you go through that every single day. That's essentially the Ivy Lee method is how it works. And so the cool part about this story is that, Charles Schwab and his team put this into play. It worked out so well that he wrote Ivy Lee a check for $25,000. And the cool thing is that back in 1918, that was still a lot of money, and it's essentially $400,000 or more today. So like Ivy Lee was sitting big back in 1918 with his method of writing stuff down and doing it that way. So it's always been a cool story to me, but again, the practice of doing it has been really helpful. I know I've suggested it to a number of friends as well, and they've liked it. And a lot of people will just use that instead of their bullet journal instead of the method. But have you ever tried the Ivy Lee method or something similar to it?
I hadn't heard of it until you shared it in one of our earlier episodes. I've done kind of like a similar thing because it feels like a kind of expanded version of the daily highlight. So rather than just picking your 1, you're picking your 6. I also really love the point that you made about like, yes, there is some kind of like mental energy or time spent up front trying to like, work your way through that, consider what's actually going to be the most important for the day, and then actually sequencing it in terms of that importance. But I think it's the kind of thing that like when people, I don't know, get introduced to a new tool, technique, whatever, whether that be like productivity related or creativity or anything else, there is always going to be that kind of upfront cost of learning how to do the thing. And I think that turns a lot of people off because, and this is not me saying it's a shortcoming, but like we all do this, right? We want things to be kind of like instant gratification. We want to just be able to like pick something up and be instantly good at it. So bloody guilty of it. Like you're not alone. But I think that when it comes to these kind of productivity tools and stuff, there is a little bit of upfront work, effort, getting used to it, getting kind of routinized with it. And after you've done it a couple times, maybe like, 4 a week, a month, whatever, you get very good at being able to do it quite quickly. So I think that this would be something that I'd be quite interested in exploring further. I haven't necessarily used like Ivy Lee method specifically, but kind of like tools maybe that were inspired by it and I just didn't know they were inspired, probably.
Well, we always talked about that with the bullet journal method. People will say, well, the bullet journal method isn't original. It's all these little pieces of different things put together. I feel like the Ivy Lee method, you have a name to it because this guy said, here's what you should do. But writing down a list of things to do and following them in order, is probably as old as time. That's just how you do things. But the sitting down, the thinking, the prioritizing it, like you said, it's something that you have to get better at as you do it, because maybe your priorities are off or they're wrong, or your priorities might change every single day. I think if you're using something like this, let's just say at home, for instance, maybe not at work. Well, one day your priorities might be your kids. The next day, your priorities might be your family. Hopefully, one day your priority should be yourself or something else like that. But it can change as you need to, and you just move them around. It's not saying, oh, forget about that. I didn't get those things done yesterday, but I'm only going to focus on this certain part today. Like you can mix and match. I think it's kind of sent you where you need to go. But I like the idea that it keeps me focused on one task until it's complete. And then I can go ahead and take a moment. What's next? Let me orient myself to what that means from a tool or a technology or a focus standpoint, and then just continue with my day.
Yeah, I like your point about focusing on one thing because I am notoriously bad at doing that. I'm very much the kind of person who likes to jump around and do like little bits and pieces of projects. And I suppose that's where my number two comes in because one of the benefits of working for yourself is, flexible schedule, pick your own projects, pick your own kind of like structure to the day. And one of the biggest downfalls is picking your own structure for the day when you're the kind of person who like to work in a very unstructured manner. So my kind of like second favorite one, I suppose, is what I call like design your day. Again, from Make Time, fabulous book, go pick it up, not sponsored. But in terms of that one, it's literally just making sure that my calendar at the start of any workday, to the kind of extent of my abilities, given what's going on, is fully structured out on Outlook. So I have blocks of time dedicated to like morning routine, lunch, any kind of like filming I want to do, specifying what filming I want to do. When I, are in this kind of busy season, like end of year, there are a lot of different videos coming out. So I need to be a little bit more specific. I can't just say film a video because it's like, then I'm going to sit there for 30 minutes being like, oh, but what video should I film today? There's so many to choose from. So it's like doing that kind of upfront mental effort, mental energy to decide specifically, between 11 and 12, we are working on this. Between 1 and 3, we are working on this. It helps, one, hold me accountable to actually just, sitting down and doing the thing that I've specified for myself. And two, it gives me a better appreciation of how much time things actually take. I know that a lot of us suffer from like time blindness. We either kind of like vastly overestimate the amount of time something's going to take or underestimate it. Video editing every single time. Oh my gosh. But being able to actually put it on my calendar, say like, okay, I've scheduled out like an hour and a half to edit this video or whatnot. And then I come to the end of that hour and a half and I can say, well, okay, am I still going? Did I need to schedule more time for myself? Or did I actually get it done in less time? I can use that information to help schedule my day in future days because I kind of have that kind of historical information about how long things actually take me to do.
That's really cool. I've thought a lot about using different tools. There's this one tool that I got introduced to a while back, and I still have this free trial for it called Sunsama. And I really want to get into it more because I think it would work really well for me. But I'm so hung up on the analog writing things down, especially with bullet journaling or the next system that I want to talk about as well. I love the process of paper, cards, pen, ink, and doing it that way. And I think that whether it's time blocking digitally or again having something do it for you or a mix of both and things pulling it together, I like it, but it almost sometimes feels a little hands off to a certain extent. And I think that for some people that's necessary, right? Especially if you have a calendar or something that's automatically doing that. I've seen a bunch of stuff online recently about using like AI and Notion and having it kind of plan your day for you. And from a efficiency standpoint, I'm sure that that's great, but I don't know that I personally would like something else to like make my schedule for me. Like, how does it know exactly? And I know obviously it's learning and doing things like that, but I want to sit down and like figure out what I have to do. I have a list of 75 different ideas that I want to try to make happen. So let me pick which one it is. But I guess maybe it would also be nice sometimes just to forget about it and like click a button and let it compile it. And then I can like massage it later to make it what I want it to be.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting tool to play around with because I've seen ones, I think they're called like Motion or something like that. I haven't explored it. It's distinctly different from Notion though, I know that much. But I'd be curious to see how it would schedule my week, kind of compared to how I schedule my week. It probably would try and take better care of me than I take care of myself. I'll be like, yeah, I can work till 10 p.m. and be like, ma'am, please go to bed. You need your beauty rest.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that I would love to see too. I keep wanting to experiment with it and try it, but I feel like it's almost like setting up another part of my life and I want to put my all into it, but then I don't want to get sucked down to this rabbit hole if it doesn't work. But I guess I could just always go back to pen and paper if I wanted to.
Yeah, I find that the nice part about using it in Outlook, like, scheduling my calendar out there, is it can change without me having to, like, erase and redraw things. It's also a program I'm already using for email, so it doesn't feel like an extra thing. Like, if I was going to explore this Motion or AI program or whatnot to schedule my calendar, that'd be another kind of, we talked about upfront costs of things. Have to learn how to use the software, how to, like, learn how to use it the way that I actually want to use it, integrate it into my old systems, all of that kind of thing. At least with Outlook, I'm already using it. I've been using it for years, so it doesn't feel like a big struggle to utilize it in this way in particular.
I would love to have an experiment where I try out working for myself with content creation for like a week. I mean, I'd have to take a vacation. It feels like a waste of a vacation a little bit, but I would love the idea of that because I'd be very curious how I would do it for myself. I've told you in plenty of previous episodes that I love watching the programming slash operations part of how you've been managing your time and your projects and things like that. Your content's great. We all know that. But I've had the honor of kind of seeing what it looks like behind the scene as we've talked about it more. And I just don't know how I would personally do it. I don't know if I would use my calendar to time block or if I would just use another tool or journal or something like that to make it happen. But I don't know. It'd just be super fun to do. I just want to make it happen. But it would only be for a week and it would be an experiment, and who the hell knows what I would do.
It would be I'd be curious to see that. It'd be interesting to see how you manage that. I mean, like you said, probably not like a waste of a holiday, but maybe not like the best use of a holiday. But I also don't know what a holiday is, though, so who am I to talk?
I was going to say, and it's really honestly would just really be me generating a whole bunch of content. I mean, we talked about it. My wife and I were always said, like, well, what happens if you were to ever lose your job? Like, what will we do? And I was like, well, I would just try to find another job, but I would just like triple down on content creation in the meantime, right? As I was going through that, like, it's not a ton of income, but it's still income. So it's kind of a setup. I would just have to completely change the way that I do work. And I already worry about myself just in my day to day normally with a lot of distractions. Can you imagine me just like going behind here and being like, what inks do I want to use? And what stamps do I want to use? It would be analysis paralysis. I wouldn't get anything done. All the tools, all the toys.
Yep, that is exactly why I need to schedule out my day, because it's only something that I've kind of started doing literally within the last month and a half, probably. And before that, I don't even know how I got things done. I don't know how I like met deadlines or anything like that. I feel like I probably squandered a lot of my time. But anywho, what is your number one or third most helpful? I don't remember what order we're doing in. I just want to hear what it is.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So it's not my number one. It's definitely like the third most interesting one to me right now. And it's one that I'm actively using. I just did a review slash kind of walkthrough video on it, but it's Ugmonk's analog cards. These have been really cool. So I've been a fan of Ugmonk for years and I've seen these, but I just never went in and said, okay, I'm going to do that. Jeff, actually, who owns the company, reached out to me not long ago and was like, hey, man, I've been watching a lot of your content on YouTube. I've seen you on Instagram. Like, this is a no strings attached thing. Like, I would just love for you to get your hands on this and just give me some feedback on how you like it, especially as a bullet journaler. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll try it out. Like, I had no intentions of like creating a video on it or anything else. It was just going to try and use it because honestly, I didn't think that it was really going to work for me because I created my like at my desk bullet journal that I had. And I was like, no, this is it. Like I use bullet journaling every single day. This will work for me, but it wasn't really doing what I thought it was going to do. So when he sent it to me, I was like, okay, the system is very straightforward. You essentially have 3 different cards. You have a today card where the focus of this is like, what do you want to accomplish today? It's actually kind of a mix almost of like your daily highlight and a little bit of the Ivy League method, except you get 10 instead of 7. Then you also have the next cards, which are a different color. And the idea there is that anything that you're not going to accomplish today, but you want to do next, you pop on there. And then after that, you have your next card. And essentially that's anything you're not going to accomplish today, you write down on here. And then you have a someday card. And a someday card really is like your future log essentially for yourself. It's just like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it needs to happen one day it's going to. And so I've just been using it. And it's something that I really like. especially for what I'm using it for, which is not my work stuff. It's actually all for social media. It's all for like everything that's happening on this side of the desk. And I don't get to these every single day. Some days work is busier than other things. So I just focus over here, but I can always come back to it. I can prioritize what I want. I can check off what I want. And everything stores inside of this, like the cards sit on this, the cards store in the back of this. It looks very nice. It's very slimline, very minimal. And it's just works out really great for me. So it's been pretty cool. So I love sharing it. It's been maybe about a month since I've been using it, maybe a little bit more. And it's just there. It's up in my face, which is the other thing that I really like. It's very streamlined. It's not like a notebook open on my desk. And I just look at it, and every week I sit down with it, or every day, really, honestly, I sit down with it. I'm like, what do I want to get done today? Or this week, sometimes it honestly falls into, I'm not going to get to everything every day, but I can't allow myself to only write one thing on a card per day. It feels very wasteful. So some of my cards have like 2 or 3 days worth of content on them that I'm trying to get done. But it's been very cool for me, and I've liked it a lot. But a lot of people are like, whoa, it's kind of expensive. I could do that on an index card. And you absolutely could do it on index card, but I just happened to get a bunch of analog cards, so I'm using them.
I will say it is very, very aesthetic. I think that it looks really cool. I love the what kind of like minimalist design of it. It's pretty. I like it. I think that it would be a fun thing to have on your desk. I do like the little stand and how it kind of like is up like at attention, like, hey, pay attention to me. These are the things you said you'd do today. But I think I'd have a similar issue where I just would not be able to write down like one thing on a card or like one day's worth of stuff. Also because like I know that my task lists, especially on a Monday, they take up like a column and a half in my bullet journal. So that's what, 37 plus, I'm not doing the math, half of 37. Lots of things written down. And I think that condensing all that to one card on my Mondays, they are my most productive days, I would feel very restricted, but it's still cute. It looks nice.
Yeah, it's been really cool for me. I like it a lot. So, very, like I said, it's not my favorite of all the things. Like bullet journaling is the number one in my heart, mind, and soul. But this has definitely been something cool to use. And as a system as a whole, it's also been very helpful for me. All right. What is your number 3, Jess?
Excellent. My number 3 is going to be task batching, which feels like, I don't know, like anticlimactic almost, but I swear it's so helpful though. It's so helpful. Sometimes the things that are going to be the most impactful and the most powerful in terms of our, productivity systems or whatever are going to be kind of basic. So we're going to talk about it still though. Anywho, in terms of task batching, if you haven't heard of it, it's effectively just taking tasks that are like the same thing that you might have to do repeated times and putting them all together and trying to tackle them at once. The best part about task batching, though, is that it combats what we call like startup lag or the startup cost with anything. So if we think about kind of like an extreme example, let's just say you're painting a painting. Makes sense because that's what you use paint for. And let's just say that you want to do maybe like 5 minutes of painting because you have like 5 minutes spare in the day. But to do that 5 minutes of painting, you have to get out all your supplies, you have to pick out your colors again, you have to mix your paints, you have to prime the canvas, like all of this kind of stuff. Your 5 minutes is going to get squandered very quickly. You probably only got to the extent of like pushing paint out of a tube or something like that. But if we kind of bring more time dedicated to that painting together, so like maybe block out an hour, it means that you don't have to have that startup cost like for each of the 5 minutes within that hour. Notably, I don't paint, so I'm not using it for painting. I know, terrible example for what I'm actually using it for. But more so, I think about the tasks that I do repeatedly that could be bought all together, done in one kind of span of time. So I don't have to kind of put in the mental energy or get out the same materials again or anything like that to, get that stuff underway. So I use this primarily for work-related stuff. I'll do it for things like video planning, so trying to get all of that kind of mental energy expended at the same time, because once you've kind of gotten in the zone of planning your videos, you can kind of just keep it rolling to other videos, and you don't have that kind of, again, what we call like a startup cost or a startup lag, where you're just kind of trying to get yourself in the mood to do the thing. Similar idea can be done for video editing, but I find that oftentimes because a video edit takes me such a long time to do, I don't really want to batch them together. So I usually avoid those ones. But any kind of like organizational things in the background, so for instance, scheduling posts on Instagram, making posts for Instagram, I have a camera that points down towards my desk, so I'll just take snap, 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 and then I'll go and make sure all the color is right for all of them, and then I'll schedule them all out in the back end of Meta, rather than kind of, every day, setting up the camera, turning it on, zooming it in the right amount, editing the picture, posting the picture. Because if I had to do that one per day from like, start to finish, that would take so much more time rather than just taking all of the pictures at once, editing all the pictures, scheduling all the pictures. So it has been quite useful, especially in this kind of like busy season, end of year period where we have a lot of content that's coming out. So making sure I'm doing as much video planning all at once rather than kind of sprinkling it and kind of scheduling small pockets throughout my day. If I do it all at once, I'm just going to better spend my time, make it so that it's a more efficient process.
It's definitely something that I'm not good at. I know that I'm not good at it. And I've actually did a video on this not long ago where I was like, I feel like a fraud. It's just the fact that you talk about ways to plan and ways to organize and do those things, but sometimes just part of my brain just doesn't do that. But I love all these different methods that I do. Like with bullet journaling, you have like your main task that you have to get done, and then you create the subtask. And it's basically like, get all these things done before you check this one off. And I like that in my mind and how things are done. I've even set that up for myself, like a checklist you were talking about for like video editing, and other things like that. That I have, but I've used it so much now that essentially it's just second nature to me. So I don't have that out anymore, but it definitely started that way as a reminder to edit things, color correct them, post them, add the details, like get all those things done, because early on, especially for me, I forgot about those as I was doing those. It was like, wait a second. Okay, I uploaded my video. It's ready to go. No, you have to set the title. I need to make a thumbnail. I need to write the description, timestamps, all those things. And so it was like, you know what? The best thing for me to do is just write this out. I had a little sticky note on my computer where I edit and do all those things. And I would just look at that and just mentally go through. At one point, I did have an index card that I set it up on. I just rewrote it probably 25 times. And I was like, okay, I have each one of these cards. It's actually, honestly, it was almost kind of like the analog cards in a way, because each video got its own card. And it would be like everything from start to finish. It would be like, wrote the outline, recorded it, edited it, and kind of went through that process. But then after a while, I just stopped using it, like everything in my life, where it's just like, nope, no, I'm over the excitement of this now. I'm just going to do what I did before. But I've always been very envious of the way that you've been able to do that for yourself and plan stuff out that far and keep to it. I can plan all day long. Keeping to it, that's where I fail.
That's why my Notion calendar is where I keep my plans for my YouTube channel, because things do move around. I know, like, recently we were supposed to have an unboxing on the channel, shipping, so that's been moved twice, and that means that other videos have had to move up and stuff. But I'm actually ahead at the moment, knock on wood, because I'm usually not. Usually it's like the day before the video is supposed to go live. That's when we're recording and uploading it. But at the moment, I'm just like trying to get ahead because Vlogmas is coming, video per day in December, gonna be crazy, but gonna be awesome. So like having to get ahead on those kind of things is where I really kind of rely on task batching. I like your point about like how this gets kind of utilized in the journal. I do a lot of task nesting. So it's like you write out the kind of main kind of, I don't know, category of task or whatever. So if we write out like video planning, and then underneath that we have an indented list of all of the different videos that I want to plan, so that then when I get to my planning session on my calendar, I've got my set block of time. I can just go down the list and do like, oh yeah, plan for that one done, plan for that one done, plan for that one done.
Yeah, it's very cool how they work out. I love finding new ways to come up with ideas and like how to utilize that. I think that's why I get myself in so much trouble so often, is that I do see a new thing and I try it. I'm like, yeah, this is it. And then it's like, oh, wait, but I have to sit down with this. It's like you talked about the time that you're putting into that to make it happen. And then that's where I think for some things that I don't give enough time to, maybe that's what it is, like actually building that habit, then I fall off of it. It's just like, well, if I stick with it, it will become a normal habit for me. It won't be something extra that I have to do. Getting over that hump for me is the hardest part.
Yeah, I think that you're not alone in that. That is for sure something that affects a lot of us. But in terms of productivity tips, tools, tricks, we would love to hear yours. Let us know in the comments, or you can email us at plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com. I'm always on the hunt for new inspiration. I want to hear your ideas.
Absolutely. Well, in our next episode, Planner Pals, we are going to be talking about New Year planning. What are we doing? What are we looking forward to? What have we already started and prepared for? And if we haven't, myself included, let's start making some final decisions by the next episode. That's going to be on me to do. Jess, I feel like you might already know your plan, but I cannot wait to talk about this. It's probably one of my favorite topics of the entire year is what are we doing next year?
No, I completely understand that. Like New Year planner season, always an exciting time. I am so eager to hear about what you're planning, also what the Planner Pals are planning. But for now, Planner Pals, thank you for watching.